Welcome to day 270. We're in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John again. So we're going to be doing this for a while. But today we're just going to be focused in John. And real quickly, as we progress, we're going to get to the point where Jesus starts telling them about the future. But until then, let's talk a little bit about Jesus' life. I think it would be ridiculous to go through the Bible and then not talk about his life. But again, I'm only going to be pointing out the most important things of what we are looking at. So if we go to John 1, verse 23, we talk about John the Baptist. So here's John 1:23. There's two things here that I want to point out. John replied in the words of the prophet Isaiah, "I am a voice shouting in the wilderness, clear the way for the Lord's coming." Then the Pharisees who had been sent asked him, "If you aren't the Messiah or Elijah," and that's the key thing here, is that he's saying that he's not Elijah. So you go back to verse 20 and 21. The Jewish leaders sent priests to ask him, "Who are you?" And verse 20 says he came right out and said, "I am not the Messiah." Okay? So first of all, he's addressing their expectation of the Messiah. Again, the Jewish people are expecting the Messiah. Verse 21, "Well then, who are you?" they asked. "Are you Elijah?" "No," he replied. Again, this is not Elijah. John the Baptist is not Elijah. Okay? He has the spirit and the power of Elijah. Okay? And then he says, "Are you the prophet we are expecting?" "No," again. Okay, then who are you? And he says, "I'm the voice shouting in the wilderness." So I'm the one bringing in Jesus, is what John the Baptist is saying. Okay, the point here in verse 23 is that, not 23, in 21, is that they are expecting the Messiah. And that's the key point behind all this. And, still to this day, I don't understand how they can be 2,000 years later saying they're still expecting the Messiah when they knew that's when he was supposed to appear. So it doesn't make any sense. Other than you keep the scriptures away from the Jews and tell them only what you want them to know. Now we get into the disciples of Christ. Can you name the disciples? I can't name the disciples. I can name some of them. So you get into chapter 1, verse 40 to 42. And we get Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, who was one of these men who heard what John said and then followed Jesus. Andrew went and got his brother Simon, and then Jesus renamed him Peter. So you got Andrew and Peter, and then you get Philip. So the next day Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip, this is verse 43, and he says, "Come follow me." So Philip comes, he's the third one. And then Philip went and gets Nathanael. Nathanael comes, and Jesus says, "Hey, a true person of Israel, genuine son of Israel," is what he calls him in verse 47. And Nathanael says, "How did you know about me?" And Jesus said, "Well, I saw you under the tree." When he was not even around, he saw him. So Nathanael realizes, nobody could have seen me. You obviously are the Son of God. So Jesus says, "Do you believe just because I told you I had seen you under the tree? You will see greater things than this." Okay, and that's the whole point. There's so many miracles that Jesus does that you can't put them in this book, and we're only reading about them in these chapters. So on that note, I wanted to make sure I started another list, and we got lots of lists, but we have a list of what Moses did, what God did through Moses, those miracles. I'm going to make a list that we're going to write down of the things Jesus actually does, okay? So that gets us to the next thing. John 2, verse 6 through 11 is when he takes these 6 stone water jars. In verse 6, they're Jewish ceremonial washing jars, and they're empty, and he tells them to fill them with water. And they fill them with water, and he tells them, take a dip of that, take the glass to the main dude here of the wedding or whatever they're there for. And the guy's like, "Hey, this is the best one. You're supposed to serve this first." And so there's the first miracle showing the disciples that he is is God. He turns an empty jar, takes the water, turns the water into wine, which is really cool. I'd like to taste that wine. I'm sure it was really good. Jesus isn't going to give him bad wine. So that's the first miracle that I put down. And then here's another thing that we can compare with Jesus being God. In chapter 2, verse 25, and in chapter 2, he chases the people out of the temple because, the temple means something great to Christ. All right, so verse 25, no one needed to tell him about human nature, for he knew what was in each person's heart. So if he is God, then he understands the same thing God does, and God knows our hearts. He knows what's in our heart, our passions, our wants, our needs, our desires, whatever it is that we are planning. He knows those things. So I put that on the list of God's descriptions. That is your day 270. I'll see you tomorrow.